I'm going to have you introduce him. How's that?
Cool. Sure. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. So welcome to the Local Peace Economy webinar that we're so excited to be with actor, activist, revolutionary Sarah Himadeh, who is talking to us from Beirut. It's her night. And you know, Sarah, I was just realizing, because I lived through the October Revolution with you, which started like 300 days ago. And here we are, not even a year later, and so much has happened. So I want to start with, where are you right now and how are you?
I am actually, today I'm in the Shuf Mountains, which is about an hour away from Beirut. Jodie, am emotionally exhausted. I'm so tired, and we're all like this. We're all at this level, and it's really hitting us. But we're all not giving up. I mean, the rage is really channeling all the work and the help that we've been doing on the grounds.
Well, I would like to start with, because you're emotionally exhausted, this is a state of being for the last 300 days, because you've basically been in the street and had your open-hearted love of your country engaged in this revolution for 300 days. So I just want to say to our audience that yes, there was an explosion, which is a result of an inept, corrupt government that doesn't pay attention to the needs of the people or its country. But you've been noting this and being in action around this for much longer than just the last couple of weeks. So I just want to note that. And if you could just start maybe as a Lebanese citizen and as a person who loves your country, with a little bit of the context.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to paint you a little bit of a picture of what's been going on. So for the past 30 years, we've been governed by warlords that fought during the Civil War. And at the end of it, these heads of militias surrendered their arms and were appointed to parliamentary, presidential, and governmental positions. And these warlords are still governing Lebanon. And it has been a corrupt 30 years that has led us to no electricity, is swimming in our own garbage. And they have run a Ponzi scheme, plummeting our economy down to the worst economic crisis, one of the world's worst economic crises, but the worst economic crisis Lebanon has seen in its history, with an 80% currency devaluation of the Lebanese lira in just less than 1 year. And just this year, in addition to the pandemic, we've had rampant fires that weren't able to be contained because the government couldn't maintain the helicopters that would put these fires out. And we're all living through informal capital controls, which means that from our banks, which means that our savings and our livelihoods are gone. And now we are suffering the consequences of a government that neglected or that stored 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate at the port, at the Beirut port, and Beirut is as you know, Jodie, because you've been here, a densely populated city. So that's kind of the picture of that's a little bit of what's going on here. Context.
I was in Beirut in the early 70s. So let's also talk about Beirut, the beautiful city of multi-layered, multi-dimensional, multi-cultured aliveness. You know, let's make sure to contrast it with what the people of Lebanon are and who the people of Lebanon are, and the melting pot that it has been, and also maybe how old it is. I mean, I think when I had the privilege of being there with you a few years ago, I learned how crazy old the culture of Lebanon is, and how beautiful and profound that is.
Lebanon is it has got 18 sects. And we've got such a rich diversity, and we've been conquered by so many empires, and all of this is very apparent here. And most recently, we had the French colonize us, and we were under their mandate, actually. So you really get a sense of all these cultural influences, and they go together in such a beautiful melting pot. And we've got, beautiful expressions of Christianity and Muslims, and they do in some ways get along. And the contrast, I mean, Beirut, they say, is a walking contradiction, because you could see a girl wearing a bikini and short shorts, and right by her you see a Muslim woman completely covered, and that's what Beirut is. It's just it's a walking contradiction.
So yes,
and
I'm glad you brought up that.
You've also, I mean, this is the popular description of Beirut, is that you can ski, in the morning, and then come down to the beach from the mountains and swim in the Mediterranean Sea in one day. And yeah.
So I'm glad you brought up the French colonizers, because, as we see around the world, colonialism doesn't leave the space for the well-being of the people. Once it leaves, the disharmonies take a while, but they continue to crack and disrupt. And so we can look at this moment that at the end of 300 and some odd day revolution, and the exposure in Lebanon, the explosion is yet another exposure of the stupidity and corruption of those that hold the reins of power. Just like in the United States, COVID has been an exposure of the corruption and the violence to the people, or those who hold power. So here we are. What can we learn from this, and how are you in Lebanon thinking of rebuilding? Because of course, France and the US and all the ruling powers that have economic power want to come in and control, right? And it's hard when you have nothing, when everything has been stolen. What are things that people from the United States could do to be helpful, so that our government doesn't impose sanctions that continue to undermine the situation, but instead serve the people? Because really, if we want the old models to fall, here's a falling, right? What are you looking at? What's happening? I've listened to you, and it sounds like beautiful things are happening in the streets, as they do when the people come together to solve problems. Take us into what's happening.
If Peter's online, I'm not sure, but he will also be able to paint you a picture, because he's really been on the grounds almost every day from morn till eve. But how the West, how you guys can help. As I said, Lebanon is unique in its pluralism, because it's got 18 sects. It's got a rich cultural diversity. It's got a long history. And I believe that it would be we also have values that, in relation to the Arab region, in the sense of freedom of speech, freedom of press, democracy. And now this is in relation to the Arab countries. These values are not always applied, but are existent. And I think that it would pay the West to keep this country stable as a model to refer to, a pluralistic model to refer to. Having said that, how you guys can help is not to forget us, to keep telling our story, to keep telling our story, to keep to help us fight for our justice, fight for human rights, to call out any human rights violations, to, as you're doing, Jodie, to cover us on your social media platforms and in your press. I mean, we need a comprehensive public relations campaign to lobby your local governments to pressure the local governments here to implement reforms and to create an independent judiciary system. Our judiciary system is completely corrupt, and without that, no accountability can be taken place. So a PR campaign. I'm working on with a group that's organizing a global live stream event where we're curating international and local singers and comedians and designers to raise awareness for Beirut, raise funds for Beirut. So iterations of that. What else? What you also can do is when checks are out.
On the funds part, it's very important, right, that the funds get to the right places. So
yes.
Maybe you could just speak about that for a minute and maybe name 3 or 4 that the audience could go to if they haven't been able to already send funds. But right. Maybe say that it's important that it goes to places that are actually supporting the work on the ground.
Let me give you an example. So the of our government that has spent $40 billion on electricity infrastructure, and right now we're powering this electricity using generators that are and the profits of those generator revenues go into the government, and into the government pockets, and so does the diesel revenues to power these generators as well. So we no longer have trust in our government, and we're urging all of the international community to allocate your funds to local NGOs. And I hope Peter's on here because he's got he's started a group that he'll tell you about called Lebanes-Canadian. That started during the revolution, and we were cleaning up the streets of Beirut and the outskirts of Beirut as well during this revolution. And in 2 weeks, we recycled more garbage than the Lebanese government has in its history. So these NGOs, these people that are creating rescue plans, are have proven to be more efficient and more transparent than our government. So we're urging people to donate to the NGOs. And Lebanes-Canadian is an organization you could donate to. Lebanon needs. You're going to ask a question.
Well, Peter's on. Yeah. So I thought you could introduce Peter since we've been talking about him.
Yes,
I'm finally on. I've been listening to you ladies, talking, and it was really just a beautiful conversation. And I was very frustrated not to be able to join earlier.
Well, welcome.
Well, Sarah was just talking about what you've been doing, so maybe you can say more than what Sarah was able to tell us.
Yeah. So, well, I think Sarah's been, describing it in a beautiful way, in a very accurate way as well. So we started the first day, it was just a disaster and a huge mess. And by the second day, we realized that, there was a huge gathering of volunteers on the ground, and it was very spontaneous people coming on the ground with brooms and bags and gloves and helmets, just trying to, work like headless chicken. But I immediately realized that we needed to sort of structure that. And because we did have a lot of experience from from the revolution days, sorting and cleaning up in the streets, we started visualizing the operation as, you need to have the proper intelligence, the proper eyes, and the proper supplies, and organize the volunteers so that it's not really a chaos, but more of an organized, more of an organized effort on the ground. And so that's what we started. We started something called the base camp, and the idea of the base camp was to have a geographic spot. So like we took a parking lot that was full of rubble and debris, and NGOs started rallying together in this movement, and so with different levels of expertise. And we decided that we were going to put all of our capabilities, all of our resources, all of our manpower together to start having more and more scale and more impact. So we started sending scouts and mapping all of the different neighborhoods of the affected region by the blast in Beirut, and then send scouts to those regions, and then they would come back with the proper intelligence, and then we would put that on the map, and then based on the requirements and the needs of those specific regions, we'd then send a different unit, dispatch a team of volunteers. So if it's a medical assignment, we would send with them some medical supplies, a nurse or a doctor. If it was about psychological relief, we would send a psychologist as well on the ground. If it was about demolition and cleaning up, so rubble, and so we would send someone and maybe close doors and glass that is shattered, so that these people would at least have a house that you can close at night, so that you don't have looters, etc. And then food relief. And it became more and more structured. So then we started, now we have a full-fledged operation that is located in train station. And train station is in Mar Mikhail. So I don't know how familiar you are with Beirut or with the area of the blast, but the spot that we were able to secure is really a very central spot, because we're very close to Karantina, which is completely like that. That's an area that was very, very close to the epicenter of the blast. So they don't have anything anymore over there. And we're close to Burj Hamoud and Naba, which is a very poor area. And we're also very close to Mar Mikhail, Jemmaize, Sessin, and all of the areas. And this place that we have secured is now allowing us to have our volunteers go directly to those missions with a very clear and very focused agenda in mind.
So how can we help you? Like, this is amazing, because really the people in the United States, our hearts break, we want to help. And you've shown us an amazing opportunity to help on the streets, where we're literally serving those on the streets. So how can people get money to you? How can we raise up more of this story to let people know how they can actually help? Because this is empowering to people who care and want to be supportive.
Yes, I appreciate that. Right now, my concern is that most of the movement that are underground, so you have the Lebanese Red Cross, of course, you have the Lebanese Army, who have finally decided to be on the ground and do something. And then you have NGOs who are working, and those NGOs are really usually focused on their own mission. And us, in our case, we're really civic society. So it's civic movements that are coming together in a very grassroots way. And we're very agile in that sense, and we're very nimble on the ground. And you have a lot of volunteers. So you have really hundreds and hundreds of volunteers. We are at any point in time during the day. We start at 9:30 in the morning. We finish around 6 or 7 in the evening. At any point in time, you will see at base camp 500 volunteers, more or less. And so how do we secure funding? So far what we've been doing is there's an application on, so it's an application, it's a delivery app like Uber Eats, where we've been calling for the Lebanese diaspora and our friends, our international friends, to simply donate on this application. And the donations are directly matched with our supplies management. So we have someone who handles all of our inventory, medical inventory, but also cleanup and construction supplies, food supplies, hygiene supplies. And then on a daily basis, we kind of replenish this inventory with the money that we have pooled on the application. Now, this is a small funding, and this is really immediate relief. Now, when we start thinking about phase 2, which is going to be about reconstruction of houses and potentially of whole areas, and also thinking a long-term hospital planning, because a lot of those affected areas will no longer have the means to go to a proper hospital. So we need to equip a neighborhood hospital that can serve all of this area. Then the needs and the supplies are going to become more complex. So how do we equip the civic society? How do we equip the NGOs to start working together in collaboration and in a way that is really very streamlined? Because I think something that Sarah highlighted a little bit before, what we need to avoid is to keep funding the corrupt political class. Please do not help them, because if you keep helping them, they're going to stay where they are and nothing's going to change. Change will happen from the people, in my very humble and honest opinion. And I'm sure that Sarah agrees.
Yes, I do.
And I agree. That's why we're talking to you.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And so think we know that peace comes from civil society, that and that, you know, by serving the essential needs, coming together from one need to the next, as you've just described, from taking care of what's most immediately needed to growing to the next needs to the next needs. So how do we find our way to that that link to support you?
So it's a vision that I have, but I think it's feasible. We just need to put the proper capabilities behind it. I believe that what is needed right now is to create some sort of a fund, and that fund would be called something along the lines of the Lebanon Relief Fund. And this fund will be operated by a steering committee that will be absolutely neutral and independent. And the steering committee will be made out of consultants. The job of the consultants is to really map out all of the relief and, you know, planning phase 2 and then phase 3 of what will come, you know, in the month that will unfold, but also potentially in the year and in the year and maybe I think it's 2 years that will unfold. So it's proper planning of what will be the needs by sector in terms of relief. And then on that basis, they will be the ones who will manage the fund, and then they will reallocate by sector. So let's say, for example, medical or education, they will have, where they would, let's say we've managed to compile $20 million or $100 million. So the $100 million are now being managed by these consultants, and you have a steering committee that's going to say, okay, great. Out of those $100 million, education will require $2 million that need to be re-injected into the country. Who will we re-inject those towards? And that's the proper mapping that needs to be done by that team of consultants, seeing and working and collaborating with the different NGOs that are on the ground. Instead of, you know, because what's happening and what's been happening for the past 30 years is, in the absence of a government, the NGOs have been replacing the government. So every NGO has been working, you know, and doing a beautiful job at it, but they've been working in a very focused way, and they've been working at ensuring that their institution is sustainable on the long term. Right now, we no longer care about institutions. What we care about is rebuilding a capital, and then rebuilding a country and rebuilding an economy. So, and that's going to take collaboration. So we need to erase all kind of egos. We need to erase all kind of territoriality, and we need to ensure that there is proper collaboration between those NGOs. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Of course, you're making a lot of sense. We all dream for that, actually. So what can we do to help you get there? Is there something this audience could do right now to be of support?
So I've reached out to some of my friends, because I used to work as a consultant at Booz Allen, which are now you know, they're known as a Strategy and in Lebanon, and I'm trying to pitch this project to them, and because I only see it as feasible once we've put the proper legal setup and then made sure that we have a bank account and a fund, and then in parallel that they are working on you know, assessing what are the needs of Lebanon, like the short-term needs, the middle-term needs, and then the longer-term needs to rebuild and reconstruct the city.
So Peter, you talked about what you're doing out of the train station and what you're doing with the groups right now. And you mentioned some kind of app where people could help each night to get what's needed to them. Is there some way people outside of Lebanon can participate in supporting those volunteer teams that are going out right now?
Yes, that's what we've been doing so far. So there's this application that is called Toters, you can go there, and there is a section that's called community, and under there there's base camp, which is the movement that we've organized in the train station. And then people can donate different kinds of amounts, and with the different kinds of amounts we say exactly specifically what we're doing with that type of money. So either we're going on a mission to provide food relief to a family, or we're going on a mission to provide medical and food relief, or we're going on a mission that's specifically going to be about providing a shelter for a family that has lost a shelter, or help in reconstruct or repair a house that has been damaged. So that's what we're doing right now, and that's how the international community or the Lebanese diaspora can have access to it and give us immediate funding.
Okay, so I need you to slow down, or maybe Sarah could help so that the audience can hear. Maybe spell it.
Yes, Toters is, go ahead, Peter.
So it's Toters, T-O-T-E-R-S. And it's a Lebanese application that resembles Uber Eats. So you usually call them, you utilize that app to order food on it, or grocery or any kind of retail shopping. And so on that app, there is a relief platform that is dedicated to NGOs, and we are called the Base Camp. So you go to Base Camp, and over there you will have different types of NGO donation options.
I put it in the comments so people can try to find it, but I think that will help people find it. Thank you so much, Peter, for what you're doing, for that leadership that's always so necessary, because people want to help, and by giving them a way to be engaged is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Jodie. I really appreciate that. Thank you for the recognition.
Good luck.
But I'd like to say something honestly. It's really, I think what gives us the energy to wake up every day, and what gives me hope, because I think we've all been crushed by the explosion. And in a way, what gave us all this hope to feel like there's something we can do is to see the youth of Lebanon and the fire in their eyes and the dedication that they have, and how selfless and restless they are, working day in and day out. And they are the ones that are leading the movement that's taking place. And I believe there's a lot of leaders out there and on the ground that we just need to identify those leaders, enable them, and make sure that they're able to make the change that we're all hope for this great nation.
So would it be a problem? I mean, this, I think of things like Yemen, and this is a little bit like what happened in Yemen, the way you described, where 500 people came together and, tried to create a new country out of that revolution, or Occupy. So is there a place, or is that too hard for people to come from around the world to be of support? Is that a bad thing or a good thing? If somebody was able to collect money from friends and join, as many code pinkers have in support of refugees or going to Yemen, is that useful, or is that there's no room for that right now?
You mean financial support?
And physical support, both?
Yeah, I guess right now it's about absolutely any kind of support is welcome, and we're not refusing anything really on the ground. Actually, we're welcoming all kind of support, because the needs are just immense. So we're welcoming and making sure that whatever capabilities we have are then immediately rechanneled to the hundreds and hundreds of families who are reaching out on a daily basis. So we have a call center, and they call us, and we're mapping the needs, and then we send the volunteers and we equip them. But I guess what we would like right now is to digitize better the mapping of needs. So we're doing that in collaboration with other NGOs who are working on the ground. So we're unifying the map, the layers of the maps of damage and relief efforts taking place. And we're also going to unify our database and have an open source database that all the NGOs will have access to. And then we will have to divide this database across the different NGOs, so that we say, okay, we're going to be able to take care of 500 families will be able to take care of 5,000 households, depending on the scale and the capabilities of each NGO. Did I answer your question? I'm not sure I did, actually.
Very well. You said we're welcome, so thank you. And thank you, Peter, for all you're doing. You've done so much in such a short period of time. It's kind of awe-inspiring. It's like, wow. So thanks for your deep heart and your brilliance. Sarah, is there anything else you want to share about what we can be doing?
I do. I wanted to actually just, Peter, thank you so much. Thank you for all you
Seriously,
do.
it means a lot. And thank you for giving us the platform to express and reach out.
Of course, we care. We love Beirut. We love Lebanon. It's hard for us to be here not knowing how to be useful. So thank you.
Peter just reminded me.
Sorry, the line was cutting, so I didn't hear that last part.
It was just gratitude. Sarah, did you want to tell us what else we can do?
Yes, I just wanted to riff off of Peter, because he reminded me a lot of the NGOs that I am in contact with are asking for, when checks are maxed out for donations, we're asking for corporate donations. So that could be like tech companies donating data storage and data security platform and digitalized reporting tools to make it easier for the NGOs and the households to be in communication, the people to be in communication. So if you've got any of your audience members that have that resource available, a lot have been reporting that it is needed. So that I would like to add. And if any, Jodie, of your local peace economy builders would like to come to Lebanon, and you've been doing this all over the world. So if you've got a model for us where we can adjust accordingly here in Lebanon, I'm sure that would be such a great value for us. And we're welcoming, there are not many foreigners, but there are foreigners that have actually traveled to Lebanon to help on the grounds. And so we're definitely welcoming that if they're courageous enough. Yes.
Why would they need courage? Tell us, why would they need courage?
Well, so I mean, I guess they wouldn't go to the protests, but you know, the past starting Saturday when we went to go mourn the victims and protests, we were met with an overwhelming amount of tear gas and shot at with live ammunition. I've got friends that were shot at, but that's not in the where Peter is, where Peter's base camp is, and different NGOs are set. But you know, it's not the most stable of countries at this time. So you know, that's what I mean by courage.
So we've talked about the rage and the upset a little bit, and so you know, here you are in a country where a corrupt government did an insanely stupid thing by allowing that ammonium nitrate to be stored in a port, the most important like economic vehicle inside the country where trade happens. So so we already witnessed, you know, the October Revolution, where that rage was already present because people were experiencing it in the jobless rate, I think, was close to 50%. Unemployment was huge, food scarcity. I mean, we've been talking about it, about, you know, cultivating local peace economies in Lebanon before this happened. So, you know, I'm so impressed with you and Peter being able to transform your anger and rage just into service, into like, okay, you know, we already knew it was a mess, but now we just have to help the people. What is all the protests still expecting? So we also know that, I mean, one of what Code Pink has done today is launch a campaign to stop the US sanctions on Lebanon, because we know the US, we know all the economic interests of, you know, any powerful economic regime. is going to want to take advantage of this moment. And what you are doing and Peter is doing from the ground, civil society is the only thing that can get in the way of powers coming to corrupt, as they have continuously in Lebanon. So here's this amazing moment. And giving people something to do to be part of civil society is one of the most important things that can happen right now, because of it's dysfunctional. So to rage at dysfunction is kind of hard because it's like dysfunctional. So what is still being demanded that can be expected? I mean, for us, it's no sanctions, because we know that just empowers the wrong people and disempowers the people. So what are other things that in the political form being asked for? Because, we saw resignations, but does that really mean anything?
No, it doesn't. We've had our government resign, but our government was pretty much a puppet government to the president of parliament.
I think, if I may say something.
Go ahead, Peter.
I mean, if, being an effective force of change on the ground might be a factor of change, like demonstration is one way of going at it, just saying we refuse this government, we refuse this corrupt political class. That's one way of doing things. It's rejection. And then showing the way is an alternative way to, get more people in your camp, right? Like, paving the way. So if we can build an efficient parallel model that is actually replacing the existing corrupt model that is completely useless and that's actually completely dysfunctional, I think, and that's really a very powerful way of crippling the current regime. And I feel like we're getting a lot of hurdles on the ground on a daily basis, because I feel we're giving them a very bad image by showing, the people that, a bunch of volunteers from the civil society are able to do so much in terms of relief. Hundreds of volunteers are able to do more than what an army is capable of doing on the ground. An idle army, because they're paralyzed, because there are so many different agendas that are, sort of taking the army in a completely different direction. So when you have a neutral force that is leading the way and that's demonstrating that change is possible, you get more people in that camp and more people away from, the previous authority. So I think now there's already been a demystification of the leaders, what we call the sultan in Lebanon, or the Za'im. So Za'im is usually, since the eras of the Ottomans, we've always had like, those figures, those chiefs of clans. The chiefs of clans today are dead. I think they're dead, at least in the eyes of the public opinion. Now, you're probably scared still of steering away from your chief of clan, but you are open to work with an alternative, that alternative has to remain neutral. So if you demonstrate that there is an alternative that is neutral, that is efficient, that is working on the ground, I think that's maybe a way of that's a way of moving towards change.
Well, I totally agree with you. That's, to get to peace, it needs to come from civil society and the people, and we need to build to need and what are essential needs. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. So Sarah, are there other ways, if people can't get on Totters, that people could help? I think just one more time, if you could say a couple of the other places where people could give direct funds that are working with Peter.
I don't know if actually, Peter, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if these are, but I trust NGOs. I've vetted NGOs like Lebanon Needs and Offre Joie, so OFFRE, and then the other word is JOIE. Peter, I don't know if Basecamp Muatam Lebanese is in collaboration with those. but
Offre Joie, we are in collaboration. So yesterday we initiated contact with them, and I have absolute trust in them. They're doing an outstanding job, and they rebuilt a whole neighborhood of, like 5 or 10 years back. Can't remember when there was a big blast in a region in Ashrafiyeh. So they're very effective. And there's also Beit al-Baraka, who's doing an outstanding job.
That's true. Beit al-Baraka is B-E-I-T. Then the second word is E-L. Third is B-A-R-A-K-A. All of these.
I'm able to sign up on Totters, so it's really easy.
Oh, Jodie, you're awesome.
You saw,
Did you see that, Peter?
It's straightforward. Well done.
Okay, so that's
thank you so much.
There's no reason we can't get on Totters and help Peter. So
it's amazing.
Yes,
so
help Peter. He really Peter gives me hope. It's like when I'm down, I really look to people like Peter, and it gives me lightness to keep moving forward.
You guys give me hope. It's mutual, Sarah. It's mutual. It's really mutual, really.
Thanks.
And you know what, Code Pink, we say the only recognizable feature of hope is action. So you are in action, you are making room for others to be in action. The other thing is, you know, Code Pink, we see ourselves as a container for others to be engaged together. And that's so important because we need to be connected. We need to be inspired by each other because it does feel overwhelming some days. And if we hold hands, if we do it together, if we are engaged, we can transform this corrupt world that Lebanon is just a part of. So, Sarah, do you have any closing words that you want us to know about Lebanon or how we help you get some sleep?
You already
sleeping
did,
pills.
Jodie, by just posting. Just
send us sleeping pills.
Send us sleeping pills.
No,
we need sleeping pills. No, you guys are doing so much. Thank you. This half hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is, has already infused me with some positive energy, and I'm sure the same for Peter. We really didn't realize how many friends Lebanon had until this explosion. It is incredibly moving and overwhelming to get the support from the international community. And on behalf of all of us, we really love you and we are so grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, I also echo that. And if there's something I want to say is, you know, resources, capabilities, you know, they're more than welcome, you know, to be with us on Basecamp, to enable us to do more, to have a larger reach, to create these synergies between us and the other NGOs, and to loosen up, you know, the bureaucracy that a lot of those NGOs still have, although they have access to funding. So I guess we're going to need, you know, more brains and more hands on decks. So yeah, you mentioned, you know, courage. Coming to Lebanon requires courage. It's not just about the demonstrations. It's like going to, you know, Hiroshima after the blast. You're going to see a lot of devastation and a lot of, I'm not going to say horror, but yeah, you will imagine the horror that the people have lived and endured. And it's about, you know, we need those, you know, we need more help, and we need people who are brave enough to be here with us and to create, you know, an impact.
Thank you, both of you. Blessings, love.
Thank you.
May we all be cultivating a peace economy together.
Thank you so much, Jodie.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Peter. I love you both.
Thank you, guys.